Okay, this is Trey Morrison with Moving Abroad with Kids, and I am speaking today with Eline Jeanne. I'm going to mispronounce it again.
Janae.
Jeanne.
Yeah.
And she is a third culture kid, has a website called thirdculturewhat.blogspot.co.uk. I'm sure if somebody Googles third culture what, they'll find it. And it has a lot of information on there. So before, instead of me trying to give your bio, why don't you give us a brief overview of the ages and the different places that you've lived?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Holland, and I lived there till I was 7, and then we moved to Shanghai for my dad's work. So I lived in Shanghai for a little over 5 years. Then after Shanghai, I moved to Beijing. I lived there for 3 years, and then I moved to Hanoi in Vietnam, and I lived there for my last 2 years. And this year, I moved to the United Kingdom alone without my parents. My parents are still in Vietnam. So yeah, I'm in university now.
I think I read that your parents are moving to
Yeah.
Bangkok.
They actually changed now. They actually moved to Singapore now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
this summer. Yeah.
there's always differences. So one of the things that's interesting about your perspective is that you've moved to different cultures at different ages.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think our readers or watchers would be interested in is, do you think there's better or worse ages to adjust, or talk a little bit about the differences on adjusting at different ages?
Yeah. Well, I think it might be a bit easier when you're younger because you might not have as close connections to friends. You have a lot of friends. I think you can adapt more easily when you're younger. So when I moved to China, although it was my biggest move, from a Western culture to a Chinese culture, I didn't really speak English very well yet. I think I was able to adapt pretty fast. I think a harder age is in your teenage years. Um, I moved from Shanghai to Beijing, so I think I was going into eighth grade at that time. So that was still all right, but you're starting to, experience teenage years, and then on top of that is the stress of moving. So I think that was pretty hard. And my hardest move was actually from Beijing to Hanoi. I was 15 and I had a great group of friends, and I loved Beijing because it was more modern. And, as a teenager, that's what you want. And then I moved to Hanoi with completely different people and a different culture again. And I think that's a hard age because you want to feel like you fit in. And when you're a teenager and you move to a new school, it's harder to fit in. And I think you care more about that when you're starting to get older.
Yeah, that it kind of makes sense. So in a way, the older you get, the sort of more difficult it is for the moves.
Yeah.
What was the move from, culturally speaking, from Shanghai to Beijing? Was that? I mean, you're speaking the same language, I guess. Was that less dramatic culturally?
Yeah, culturally it was pretty much the same. I mean, like Shanghai is more modern than Beijing, but it was all right. And the same food, the same everything. Basically, it wasn't that bad. Just my school and everything changed a lot. It was just completely different systems, but that was probably the easiest move,
So
like culture-wise.
one of the other questions people have a lot is about schooling, and I know in your blog you mentioned living like in compounds. Did you mostly go to school with other expat kids or local schools, or tell me about your
I
schooling?
always went to international schools. My school in Shanghai there were a lot of Chinese kids that went to that school, but it was um, kind of, the richer kids because
Yeah.
so it wasn't exactly like I went to school with, people my age or similar to me from the culture itself. My school in Beijing, there was some sort of law that didn't allow people with a Chinese passport to go to that school. So it was only expat kids. So that was really different. And then in Hanoi, it was the same thing. I went to a United Nations school. So it was just a lot of kids from, whose parents worked at embassies and things. So I always went to international schools. I never went to like local schools or
Local.
anything.
Was it hard to keep like the consistency moving from one school to the next? Was it sort of like, we already studied that, or I learned this, or was it backtracking, or like how'd that
Um,
work out?
for some, it was. I think mainly from my school in Shanghai was an American system,
Hmm.
and I moved to Beijing, and that was more British system. So that was a bit different, but it wasn't too bad. I always went to MYP and IB schools. I don't know, but that's pretty normal in
So the what's MYP stand for?
it's middle years program, and then IB is International Baccalaureate, so that's 11th and 12th grade.
And so those are like programs that no matter where you move, you can kind of follow the same curriculum.
Yeah. So yeah, and most international schools follow that, so that was all right. I didn't really have any problems with, like you said, doing things over or anything. That was all right.
So now that you're in university in UK, looking back on your education, do you feel like, wow, I got a pretty good education? I'm ahead of these folks, or you feel like you're catching up? Or
No, I think for some things I'm definitely further ahead than some. I don't feel like I lacked education in any way. I think in some cases, like I said, it was better where I went. So it's completely fine. I don't feel like out of sorts education wise or anything.
yes, school wise, and obviously you got an entirely different kind of education, experience in the different cultures.
Yeah.
So one of the other big questions I have, especially I guess as you're moving at an older age, about the friendships that you form, that are formed and then broken, and as you get older and you're looking to have boyfriends, and I know you have a brother too, and girlfriends and whatnot, and then moving, has that been an issue?
Yeah, I think you have different kinds of friends. You have the friends that you know you had good times with when you lived in a certain place, but you know that you probably won't keep in contact with them or see them again. I have a few friends that I met. One friend in particular that I met in Beijing, and we were really good friends there. And then I moved, and we've always kept in contact. And she lives in London now, so I've been seeing her like four
Cool.
times a year. So I have another friend that I met in Shanghai actually, and we were both 8 years old. And she's been living in Canada now for many years, but I still email with her a lot. So I think you have the friends that you always keep in contact with. But I do have friends that I knew really well when I was living in a certain place, but then we kind of both moved on and led different lives, and we weren't very good at keeping contact. So I think you have a few good friends, but it's always hard to keep in contact with everyone and make sure that like you're emailing everyone and things.
I think that's sort of normal with wherever wherever you are. So, but you do find that in you feel a tighter bond maybe with other third culture kids that can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, definitely. Like my friend who lives in London, I can talk to her about, missing family, and it's different than I have a lot of friends here, but some of them live 20 minutes away and they can just, go home for dinner or when they're not feeling too good. And I can tell them about how I feel and they'll try to understand, but I don't think you can really truly understand unless you've actually like been in the situation yourself. So it's always good to have like another third culture kid friend that you can kind of talk to and that can understand. And you
Yeah,
can relate to as well, because sometimes you just want to do that as well.
that gets
So,
it. So when you were moving into these other cultures and trying to integrate with the locals, did you find any? Did you have issues of bullying or feeling ostracized? Being the new person, or was it more people were fascinated by you, or what were your
um,
experiences?
well, when I moved to Shanghai, it was during a time it wasn't as normal that there were expats in Shanghai than it is now. I think there's a lot now. At the time, like I said, I was almost 8, so I was like a little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, and people were fascinated with us. So, my brother was 2 years old at the time, also with blonde hair and everything. So people would come up to us, and there's a thing that they thought it was good luck to touch blonde hair, so they'd come up to you and they would touch your head and your hair. And when you're a kid, that's really daunting to have like crowds of people just come up to you. And but it was always like kind-hearted. It was never there was never any negativity towards us. I never experienced people not wanting us there or anything. It was just a fascination, I think, yeah. But I think it's become more normal now to be an expat, because when I moved to Beijing, it wasn't like as fascinating that we were there or anything.
Yeah, it seems like it is getting more normal. I remember bringing my son into Ecuador, and when he was 2, and blonde hair, and these ladies would literally just scoop him out of my arms and like take him away, and like back into the kitchen of the restaurant so they could all play with him and stuff. And he was the star,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
he was completely blonde. So since you've have your experience in your brother, have you noticed any differences? I mean, has he had a harder time or less of a hard time, or make any difference being a boy or a girl, or not really?
I don't know. Because he was really young when we moved. Like I can still remember Holland, and I went to school a few years in Holland, so I kind of remember that. But he was 2 when we moved, so he's basically only grown up abroad from what he can remember most things. So he's gotten used to it. I think, well, my brother's very outgoing, so he can make friends with anyone. I think that definitely helps. But I think it's pretty much the same. I can't, he still hasn't really hit puberty. Maybe it changes then. Maybe when he
Yeah,
becomes a real teenager, maybe it'll change. But right now, I think it's pretty much the same.
that's cool. Um, so when you move into new environments, as far as like connecting with new people, do you feel like having these different cultural experiences makes it easier for you to quickly connect with people, or does it make it more difficult?
It can make it easier. It gives you things to talk about, and if people have a similar lifestyle, then you can kind of, see the similarities that you've experienced. But it can be difficult, especially if someone doesn't understand or they've never talked to someone that's, lived abroad or anything. And you can try to tell them about it, and they might never really understand, kind of thing. But I think it's all right.
Yeah, I can see how that would make the maybe the connection maybe more superficial. I mean, if you
Yeah,
talk to somebody there in Wales who's never left that town, they might be great people and you get along, but at
yeah,
some level you're just sort of you can't connect in the same
yeah.
way.
Yeah, because when I talk about going home, that means, getting on 3 different planes and going to all these different places. And it's harder for them to understand that than, just getting in your car and driving 10 minutes and going home. And it's not that they don't want to understand, it's just they've never like done it. So it's all different.
Yeah. Speaking of home, I know you have a post on your website about home, but so um, you know, where do you consider home? Is it home is where your parents are, or do you have an affection of where you went through your teenage years, early or
Yeah, I don't. It is definitely where my parents are. So right now, I would say home is, if I would say, oh, I'm going home, I would say I was going to Vietnam. If I was in Vietnam and saying I'm going home, I'm going back to the United Kingdom. I've never really considered Holland home because I don't know why I don't have many connections to Holland anymore besides like my grandparents and my aunts and stuff living there. I go there once a year during summer. So I don't really have any friends there anymore because I was 7 when I left, so we didn't really keep in contact. Probably when my parents do move to Singapore, I will say that Singapore is home, even though I've never lived there, but it's because they live there.
so that's the biggest factor. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
about to ask that. So once your parents move somewhere that you've never lived, will that suddenly become home?
Yeah. It'll be the first time it happens, so we'll see. But I think it will be, probably.
So I guess since you've been through it a couple times, what advice would you give to like maybe parents that are thinking of moving abroad with their kids? Like, what things could parents do to make life better for their kids?
I think even before the move to kind of expose the kids to the culture, like through films or like through books, and to, you know, just so that you know what the, different differences between the cultures, so the kids aren't completely culture shocked as soon as they get there and everything's different. I think once you get there, to just, make it feel as much as home as possible, like even in the house, to make it look similar to what you lived before so they feel like they're at home in that culture. Um, just going out and doing simple things like grocery shopping and all these things, and always taking the kids with them, because I think as soon as you make the place feel normal, like the kids will start to feel like it is home. I think sometimes parents might make it like a really big deal that you're in a new place, and it is like a huge change. But if you highlight the fact that you're in a new place and all these new things are happening, if you constantly focus on that, the kids will feel more like they should be scared. I think if you just make it normal, it'll be easier for the kids, I would
Yeah,
say.
it's like bedtime, and grocery shopping, and some things are always the same.
Yeah, to just kind of integrate that into like the new place you're living in, it'll definitely make it easier for the kids, I think.
And so, like for your family, I guess I would imagine that kind of traveling around would make you guys a pretty tight.
Yeah, we are very tight. I think because I was always surprised because I thought, because I was so far away from my parents that I wouldn't be as close to them anymore. But if I talk to my friends from here, they seem much less close to their parents than I am to mine, and I only see mine 3 times a year now. But yeah, I think you do definitely get close because they're the only consistency you have through moving to different cultures. The other people are always there. So you definitely get very close.
Yeah, you have that shared experience together that
Yeah.
really, I mean, even other third culture kids haven't been at the exact same places all your family knows. I mean, they know all the same things, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so, so having been through them all, you know, moving into adulthood yourself now, what would you say were some of the, I guess, advantages and disadvantages of having these experiences? I'm sure there's some negatives as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, first advantages are definitely just the main things like experiencing new cultures and having all these amazing opportunities to see and do different things. Um, there are negatives, like I'm not that close to my extended family. I see them once a year and I don't really have much connection with them anymore, which does sometimes like make you sad because you wish you were closer to your cousins and your grandparents, but it's just harder to do when you're very far away. Maybe another negative is because you're so used to friends always leaving every year and you yourself leaving, um, you kind of form relationships differently. Like you form a relationship knowing that they'll leave next year or you'll leave next year, and it does make a relationship different. I think you just maybe start to lose trust in certain relationships, and you just have to like get over that and learn that some people will always be there for you even if you leave. I think that's just something you have to learn over time.
Yeah, I could see that being
Yeah.
kind of tricky. I mean, like in Panama, I know a lot of the kids have the same. They get tight with some kids, and then they suddenly move, and like now their friends are gone, and it's
Yeah.
it's sad for them.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a balance between um, keeping your guard up and never really getting too close because you don't want to get hurt. At the same time, you have people for a limited time. Sometimes you just get really close really fast and just get more accustomed
Yeah.
to people moving away and just, or maybe not as sad about it. You're used to it. It's just something that happens and you just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. It's something that, like I said, over time you kind of get used to and you learn how to enjoy your time with your friends that you have at that moment. And you kind of learn how to keep in contact with them when they're gone and just how to appreciate the time you do have with your friends, I think.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in in long term relationship and commitments and stuff. Whether that'll be a challenge for you or you can find someone else. I'm sure you're going to have travel in your blood. You're not likely to settle down in some case for
Yeah.
25 years in the same house.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it'll be might be a struggle at the start, but sure I'll find someone, maybe.
so and you're studying journalism there. You said
Yeah, I am.
that's pretty cool. You can write about your experiences and your travels. Maybe you'll
Yeah.
become a travel writer.
Yeah, that's a dream, maybe.
Yeah, that's a dream of a lot of people, isn't
Yeah.
it? Get paid to travel.
Yeah.
What better could you have?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's all the questions I had. Anything else you wanted to add?
I think I would just say to parents like, if they're worrying about moving their kids abroad, that no, it's not easy and there are struggles, but I know that for me, that I've reached an age that I can really see how different my life has been because of it. And it's been like I've it's changed me for the better, I think, because, I've had so many experiences and compared to some people, I think you just become a different person in a positive light. So they might worry, but I think in the long run, their kids will appreciate it. Definitely. I think there's more advantages than disadvantages in the end.
But that's crucial. I think going
Yeah.
through struggles and overcoming them is what builds character.
Yeah, definitely.
And certainly moving abroad with your family is going to lend its share of those for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, cool. Well, hey, thanks for your time and for the interview. And to all of our viewers out there, check out Third Culture What blog, and you can get more information. And good luck to you in your studies. Hope it all goes well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great day.
Thank you, you too. See
Bye.
you.